Hello and welcome to the video. I am very excited for this one. I have a tale of two games. We have two games in the same variation. Sometimes when you go down the rabbit hole, you see some exciting things. And we are going to look at Judit Polgar's, one of her absolute best games, a masterpiece of a game. And then we will see one of the greatest escapes of Svidler and Anand's career. Now let's get into it. First, the Polgar game. Now this was played in 2002 at the Bled Olympiad. Judit Polgar, of course, playing for Hungary, as he's playing against Mamedyarov from Azerbaijan. At the time, Shaq was a young and up-and-coming grandmaster, and Judit wasn't exactly dying of old age. She was born in 1976, so 26 at the time, and she opened with e4, the aggressive player's choice. e5 by Mamedyarov. We have the Spanish rule Lopez, bishop e5, a6, bishop to a4, standard stuff. But here Mamedyarov plays knight takes e4. Now this is called the open Spanish, and you're more likely to see the closed Spanish generally in chess history, but there have been people who have played knight takes e4, most notably Svidler and Mamedyarov. Svidler and Anand has played it in his career many times. I can name Ivan Sokolov, Viktor Korsno like this variation. Knight takes e4. Position gets a completely different character, and Mamedyarov is still playing this variation to this day. One of his favorites, I guess. Now we follow the main line, d4, b5. Bishop has to retreat, d5, black secures the knight on e4, white wins the pawn back. It's too dangerous for black to try to hold on, and we protect the pawn on d5. It was attacked, knight b to d2, knight c5, c3 by white, and now black plays d4. Now this variation became, quite well known following the World Championship match in 1995 between Kasparov and Svidler and Anand, where Kasparov played knight g5. I believe knight g5 was a discovery of Tal back in the day, and the idea is if queen takes d5, then queen f3 is very strong, and it turns out it's very difficult to protect this knight. That's, however, a different story. In the Kasparov-Anand game, Anand took on c3, and Kasparov took on e6, and we'll just quickly see what happened there, because Kasparov uncorked some fantastic preparation, and he sacrificed the rook here, which Anand accepted, and Kasparov won in style. That's a different story. So this game was played after that in 2002. And bishop d5 was a move that people have been playing here. Both Mamedyarov and, incidentally, Anand, as we'll see, and Anand Sokolov. Anand now with the white pieces. Anand took on d5, Sokolov took on d5 with the queen. And that game actually ended up with Sokolov winning with the black pieces in a very nice endgame. But there's a stronger move for white here, and Judit Polgar, the aggressive player that she is, she played the best move. Knight takes f7. Beautiful move. And if we go back, this reminds us a little bit of the fried liver, which after bishop c4, knight f6, knight e5, most players know this. We take on d5, and now we take on f7. And there's always these ideas with queen f3, putting pressure here, and the king comes up to e6. This is sort of similar after knight takes f7, going back to the game. So Polgar took on f7, and Shaq took with the king. Now if he takes with the bishop, we take, and this unprotected knight becomes a nuisance for black. And despite not being down too much material, on only one pawn, black's position is kind of hopeless because he can't castle, the king is open, and he doesn't have very good coordination. So king takes f7 looks forced, queen f3 check, and now king e6. So very similar in many ways to the fried liver. Polgar gives a check on g4 here. And this is where we branch to our 2 games. Mamedyarov played king f7, but in the other game we'll look at afterwards, the move king e7 was played, which is slightly more resilient. But okay, back to Polgar against Mamedyarov. Mamedyarov played king f7, and this allows the white queen to sort of step ladder slightly more into the enemy camp. Queen f5 check, and now king e7. And the queen is much better placed here than on g4, which is the main difference between playing king f7 and king e7. So that's why king e7 is more resilient. And Polgar showed that this position is basically lost for black after e6. The idea is to give mate, but also we put pressure on the bishop. Double attack. And the only good way to resolve that is to take with e6, take on e6 with the bishop takes e6. But now the white pieces start to come into the game one by one. Rook e1. The rook comes into the game, more pressure on e6. Mamedyarov defends. We take on e6, but only so that we can bring another piece into the attack. Knight e4, hitting the queen with tempo. And the floodgates are about to open. The bishop is threatening to come into the game. After the bishop comes in, the rook is ready. And black has a very weak king and poor coordination. Mamedyarov tried to simplify with queen e5, but now comes the bishop to g5, and the king has to move. Mamedyarov went king d7. If he takes on g5, we simply take, and now the queen is lost, as you can see. Also, if king to e8, knight f6 wins the queen. And then we take on e6. So Mamedyarov tried king d7, but now a very nice move by Polgar, which seals the deal. And it's always nice when you put a piece on a square that's very, very, very protected. And it looks like the knight can't go to c5, but indeed it can. It's protected by 3 pieces, but turns out one of them is pinned, so it can't take the knight. And if queen takes, bishop takes was played in the game, but if queen takes, we have this very nice mate here, and this I call the queen triangle. This is one of my checkmate pattern videos, which I will link to. Do check it out if you want to learn more about chess. I have plenty of these pattern recognition videos that are very useful. So a queen triangle mate. Mamedyarov tried to give up the queen, bishop takes c5, but Polgar wanted more, queen f7. Now if the king goes to c8, I will take the queen now, and then I will take the knight, which will now hang. So Mamedyarov tried to hang on, but bishop e7 check, king d5. Well, actually he resigned here, because after king d5 there's going to be queen f3. Check. You can interpose the queen, but I think this is nicer, king c4 and b3 mate. So an absolute masterpiece by Judit Polgar in these kind of positions. She was just merciless, absolutely merciless, as you could see. There were plenty of nice moves, in between moves, knight c5. Lovely game. Now, going back, king takes f7, queen f3, king e6, queen g4. So Mamedyarov played king f7. Like I said, king e7 is more resilient. And now we come to the game between Svidler and Anand. Now this game was played in 1999 in Dos Hermanas. This game should have been well known to Polgar and Mamedyarov. So Polgar wasn't maybe exactly coming up with, inventing the wheel with knight takes f7, because there are similarities in the fried liver and this previous game. So Anand played king e7, but even with a queen on e4, g4, this is very strong. e6. Anand took, and very similar to the Mamedyarov game, Polgar against Mamedyarov, rook e1, putting pressure on e6 and taking advantage of this poorly placed king. So here Anand is put under tremendous pressure by Svidler, bishop d7, queen d7, bishop takes e6, and knight f3. And just like in the Polgar game, there's going to be massive pressure here on the e file. Knight g5, and well, Anand is put on the back foot here. He needs to keep on defending. bishop d2 and h6. Now here Svidler went for knight to f3, which is a good position, but he could have gone for this. He could have taken rook takes e6 and rook e1. Modern computers give a very big edge to white here, but it's understandable that maybe he wanted more, or felt that if black is able to, consolidate his pieces, he's actually not down any material, so maybe he will get back into the game. But I think at the end of the day, black is so discoordinated that this should be a very good position for white. But Svidler wanted more. Knight to f3, queen d5, rook e5, intending to, well, eventually double on the e file, but first he takes on d4, and now d5 becomes an issue here. h5 trying to, well, confuse matters. Queen e4, king f7, but d5 nonetheless. King went to g8, and here again Svidler can just take on e6, which should be nice, but he wanted more. He played queen g6. Again, this winning back the piece and just going for something like this. Black is so discoordinated with all the pieces in the back rank. Bad king, open king. White's pieces are tremendous. The knight comes to g5, weak diagonal. Again, a big edge according to the computers. But Svidler wanted more. Queen g6, he hits the rook, rook e7, and doubles the rooks. But now Anand escapes to an endgame, but an endgame that should be lost nonetheless. He doesn't really have any good choice here. He goes with knight d4. Some tactics here. Queen takes d6, Anand has the Zwischenzug, knight takes f3 check. He takes on d6, and we have this forced trade. So Anand has escaped to an endgame where he's down a pawn. But he still lacks in coordination, and white is going to win another pawn. And frantically goes for counterplay with h4, rook a8, king h7, and now we take the pawn. Even rook takes h8 might still be winning, but understandably Svidler just collects the pawns. Takes rook c2, bishop c3. A very logical and human move, but computers say that white is completely winning after bishop a5 or bishop e1. It could be that, well, in the game we see that Anand was able to use the position of the bishop on c3, although it wasn't the best move, but still should be winning for white. But black is now getting counterplay because the h pawn is all of a sudden quite good, and the king is in some slight trouble here. Knight g5, the knight becomes active. Svidler goes for the g7 pawn. But now all of black pieces are becoming active. So Svidler is allowing too much, and in fact, now he's allowing a draw. If the king goes here, rook g1 checkmate. So the king has to go to e2, and now the draw could have been secured by rook c2 check. If we go back, there's a perpetual, and if we try to win, the king will come in. This becomes an unstoppable threat, and white has to give up the rook for the knight. And he should be able to draw that position, but that's not what white wanted. Instead, Anand takes on c3. So this is what I'm talking about, taking advantage of the position of the bishop, but this is not the best way to play, and in fact, now Svidler is winning again. King f1, forced series of moves, Anand wins the rook, but black is in trouble because white has a lot of pawns here. King takes d5 and king g2, knight g5, but here Svidler goes wrong. So he plays h4, which allows the knight to swing over to the queen side. On the queen side, the knight can control the a-pawn, and the king can come to the king side to try and control the two passers on the f and h file. If he, however, had played a5, the knight is simply too late. If you try to control the pawn like with king c5, we can start pushing, and this is just a sample variation. The king will just enter, king f5, king g6, king g7, and then we'll push the pawn. If knight c4, we can play f3, and this is lost. So a5 would have most likely won the game. So instead, Svidler lets Anand off the hook with h4 here, and now the knight comes into the game. We try to push h5, but now the king comes, like I said, to the king side. c4, knight d2. Anand picks up the very important c pawn, because now he has a pass pawn as well, and this pass pawn turns out to be absolute key. And now if we count the pieces, there are 7 pieces on the board, and when we have 7 pieces, we can use the table base, and the table base says that this is a draw. So the table base is basically all positions with 7 pieces or less, and you can find out just the truth. You just look up what's the best move, and the table base will tell you what the evaluation of the position is. So Svidler plays f4 here. This is a well-known pawn ending theme, keeping the king under control. You can't take the pawn because the other pawn runs, etc. But let's see what's going on here. White tries to activate the king. King e3, knight c7, king d2, king f6, a little dance here. And soon we'll see what's going on. d4, a nice move by Anand, and king f6. And it turns out that if we take this pawn, there's going to be knight b5 check. Then we win the pawn, and the game's a draw. So white can't really make any progress. So he tried king d3, king f5, king e2, king f6. Now this should be a draw. Black just keeps the knight here. So whenever you take, you have the check. So here he can play knight a8, king e2, and then just go back to c7. And this should be a draw. King e4, king f7, and f5. But here, Anand blunders. He plays king f6 and allows h6. But would you believe it? In this position, they agreed to a draw. So kind of, well, not the ultimate blunder, but the second worst blunder possible in chess when you agree to a draw in a winning position. It's worse when you resign in a winning position, but agreeing to a draw is equally painful. But Svidler couldn't see any way forward, and it's well understandable. So he agreed to a draw. However, in this position, white can win. He can take this pawn. But wait, you said that knight b5 picks up the pawn. I did, and that's true. But we play here. He takes the pawn, we chase the knight. Here, here. Now if the knight goes here, it's too far away. So it looks like we can play knight here and we're okay. But now comes the beautiful h7. But, well, the king is here. It is. But with the knight here, we've set up this beautiful winning idea of f6. Now the king can't go away because of the pawn. And if it takes the pawn, we take this and we queen. So Svidler missed an absolutely study-like win. And this is definitely one of Anand's greatest escapes. He's basically lost out of the opening, gets a lost ending, saves it, gets lost again, and then they agree to a draw in a position that's lost, although in a very beautiful and study-like manner. So I hope you enjoyed this tale of 2 games, and I hope to see you soon in another chess video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.